happy day. Today is the best day ever. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Class 6 of the 2017 Summer Prosperity Series at Center for Spiritual Living, Asheville. Yay! Money is in the air. Money is floating around, showing up, finding us. So, how do you claim your money? You do your treatment for prosperity. How do you claim your money? Treatment for prosperity. How do you claim your money? Stand up. Treatment for. You guys are just not on one way. I'll give you one answer. Are you ready? Take a deep breath. We're going to do our treatment for prosperity together aloud. I know that God is the source of all supply and that money is God in action. I know that my good is here now. I am so rich and so full that I have an abundance of money to spare and to share today and always. I know that true prosperity includes perfect health, perfect wealth, and perfect happiness. This word which I speak in faith knowing now activates universal law and I accept the results. I bless all that I have now and I bless the increase. I bless all the others in the increased income program of our class and I know that we now prosper together in every way. I give thanks for this good, and so it is. Excellent.
Thank you.
Who has a story? They've got their type, check, or cash all set to go. Who wants to come on up? Come on up, Thomas.
Here they come. Here they come.
Okay, right here. I know, I thought he was walking with such gusto.
He had something that was full.
I manifested $50 this past week.
I had two miracles as far as I'm concerned. I'm selling my sister's condo, and it had been sold to a guy or a couple, and they were moving up to closing, and they were saying, I don't know if I want to do this now. And so they already paid $500 earnest money, and so then they decide, no, I'm not going to pay, and I'm going to go back on the contract, and so they had to pay a penalty fee of $500. The lawyers worked up something and they paid that, and so then I just got $1,000 sent to me from the lawyer, and so that was free money. But I know that it is already sold, so to the perfect person who would really love it. Then the second one, I had have a shed in the back of my duplex, and I had a truck coming to take all the junk that was in there. And so we were in the back of his truck, and then I was writing his check for $288. And he started looking into his truck. He said, I don't think that's right. I think I need to, could you just tear up that check? We'll make it $100 less. And so it was $198. So I said, that'd be great. And I said, would you like me to write some more checks, go out further? but he stayed with that amount, so I got an extra $100.
Yeah, all right.
I sold a print this week for $100, and I did a job for $100 and a job for $50, so $250.
I'm Shelly. I don't know very many of you yet, but
I just want to say how grateful I am to have found this community. I was a really active member of a New Thought Church in Sarasota, Florida about 20 years ago, and I never really thought that I'd find another community of like-minded people, so thank you all.
Hey, Shelley!
Two other things. We run a nonprofit animal sanctuary, and we've kind of kept to ourselves up on the mountain. We're about an hour from here. And just been pushing myself out there more and kind of networking and getting to know more people. And so we're going to be doing the Veg Fest. And he agreed, since we're kind of struggling right now, to waive the fee. And then based on how many donations we get on September 3rd, we'll see like what our tabling fee will be. So I take that as prosperity.
Yes.
And I also am a consultant for a nutritional cleansing program, and I've kind of struggled with it because I never want to come off as like salesy, but it's something that has completely transformed my life. I feel fantastic, and I've lost weight, and I'm sleeping better, and I just can't say enough fantastic things about this program, and I just signed up my first person, so.
Were you and David,
David Owen Ritz.
David Owen Ritz? David Owen Ritz and I were in the same center in Fort Lauderdale with the same teacher.
No wonder That's fantastic.
Come on, Donna.
So actually, over the past several weeks, I've consistently manifested new client contacts for my business. Yeah, very happy about that. And also manifested unexpected checks in the mail. And then just this evening, this is a complete surprise, whenever I picked up my, my envelope, there was money in it. And this is my first 100% tie.
Hallelujah.
Well, I have graduation money.
I'm Sylvia, and as many of you know, I just moved to the area and things have been challenging, but one of the things in the prosperity class that I've been working really hard on is I just had a hard time believing cash money could really come in the mail. And last week I opened my mailbox and took out there's a plastic envelope, and I could see in that envelope a dollar bill, and I went, it's only $1, but it's proof that cash can come in the mail. And they do want their money back with some more, but that's more work than I'm going to do, so I'll just go ahead and drop this in the pot tonight. But what I really want to say also is that I had purchased some things at a going out of business sale, and I didn't have a truck or a way to get it, and asking for help is a part of my journey. And so I posted in our condo association that I would pay for somebody to come and help me pick up the furniture. And in the end, a lady whose son needed to get community service hours for his college graduation, the whole family came, went, picked up all my furniture, set up the bed, and wouldn't even take gas money. So.
Hi everyone. So I've been privileged to be a facilitator of money, which is also exciting, where I'm facilitating money for others, which is really cool. So I've been helping others. I don't really know how to explain this. So when an event happens, I get the money and I get to pass the money through. So it's kind of it's nice, because then I know that the money is flowing and God is in action. And also in my own life, I started at 0 for income. So last week I had an increase, this week I have another one. This one is bigger, so I just did the math, and this says it's a 500% increase. So here's some more.
Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, this is off topic, but I've been recruiting for the center. I got my friend from recovery back there, Jess. She's good. Jess, she's good. She's scared to sit down, I guess. I don't know.
That's the anonymous part?
Yeah. Okay, but just struck up a conversation with somebody at Green Sage, and just for giggles, they gave me $20 out of nowhere. So. And I got more money. I forgot where I got it from, but
And you were on WLOS last Tuesday reciting poetry. Good for you. I had someone come to my office during the week who said they cannot share their story because it involves other people and it's not to be publicly known, but handed over a $3,000 check. Who else? Are you feeling better?
Yes.
Are you noticing more good in your life?
Yes.
Are you doing your gratitude?
Yes.
Are you doing your gratitude sheets in the morning?
Yes.
Are you going around and breathing deeply the blessings of life and feeling like you're in the flow and you're supported and you're lifted up?
Yes.
What?
Yes!
Really? That's what it's about. Money is great. Money we can count. Money we can look at. Money we can prove. Oh, cash can come in the mail. Oh my God, there's cash in the mail. I guess it can. Money we can prove, but prosperity is all about how we live. Living with more than enough instead of not enough. It's a huge difference. And so we learn to manifest money in our lives so that we can move on. And I want to be really clear about this, that the summer prosperity class at this center is all about getting our relationship with money mastered so that we can move on. Because as long as money is mastering us, we cannot move on. Yes. So we want to be master of our money, be master of our time, be master of our emotions, be master of our thoughts, be master of our words, and be master of our actions. And when we do that, we are master of our lives. So what I want to talk about tonight is something near and dear to my heart, and that is the spiritual practice of tithing. It is one of the first things that I learned when I came into this teaching because I was stone cold broke. I had a 3-year-old child. I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a car. I had moved 4,000 miles away from my home trying to effect a geographical change in my life and a geographical fix. And what I realized was I didn't have a clue how to make my life work. And so I found myself in this Science of Mind Center in Eugene, Oregon, and my Science of Mind teacher at the time told me, if you think you cannot afford to tithe, you cannot afford not to tithe. And when I got that of course I couldn't afford to tithe, I only had 37 cents to my name. I had no place to live, no car, no job, no concept of how I was going to take care of my child. How in the world could I tithe? I didn't even have any money to tithe. When I realized I was in that category of I cannot afford to tithe, then I chose to step into I cannot afford not to tithe. And so I remember that Sunday morning the baskets went around, and they were those metal gold church plates, you know, with a little bit of red velvet on the bottom. It did not stop the sound of a quarter, a dime, and 2 pennies hitting it when I opened the change purse in my wallet and shook it out, realizing I had nothing to lose but to begin to trust and to practice these principles. Since then, I've gone from destitute to amazingly prosperous and abundant, to having $1 million value in my life, to being able to live the life of my dreams, do what I have come here to do, and to be quite successful and good at it. I'm really glad. Because even if I was a mediocre teacher, I'd still be standing here doing what I need to do. So I have gone the full gamut in 40 some odd years of recreating my life. This center is based on tithing. When I was running away from ministry, which I did, and coming to North Carolina, and then I thought I'd be a minister over at Unity, and I love Unity, and people at Unity think that Unity and Science of Mind are the same. People in Science of Mind don't think that Unity and Science of Mind are the same. And so here I was, Barbara Waterhouse, trying to be an assistant minister over at Unity and teach my Science of Mind classes. That's where I met Larry Williams. He came to Science of Mind 101 over at Unity, and that didn't work. So I left Unity, and I was in a quandary because I tithed. I always tithed, and I had an envelope filled with cash in one of my drawers. Sock drawer, underwear drawer, sock and underwear drawer, whatever it was. I had an envelope that just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I looked at it one day and I had an epiphany that not only was I accumulating tithe, which is a bad idea. I like the concept, don't let the sun go down on your tithe, keep the law in motion. But I had no place to give it because I was not being spiritually fed. And having sworn off ministry, when I left the Miami Church of Religious Science with an attorney by my side and parliamentarian hired to facilitate the last annual membership meeting that I was at, think about that for a moment. That would be the dramatic Barbara. Having sworn off ministry, I realized I was in a quandary because I didn't have any place that was feeding me. I didn't have any place that I was connected. And if I'm not being fed and I'm not connected, I'm drowning. And so John and I had a thing that we did every year where we would go down to the Keys over the Christmas holidays. And there was a particular key that I loved called No Name Key. It's down off Big Pine Key. They were going to develop it, and then they shut the development down. They've got this 6-lane bridge going over Spanish Channel into nothingness, and it's a great place to fish off a bridge because nobody's going to hit you because there's no traffic. And so we were out there, and John had been kind of pushing me. I think that as my husband, he had been seeing me go down. I had tried to go to school, and I was in the honor society and made straight A's.
That's how Barbara tries to go.
Yeah, I tried to go to UNCA. I tried to garden. My last garden was an acre, a full acre. I had my Troy-built tiller, and I would plant by the light of the full moon my Native American section and smudge and plant in the middle of the night, and then I rope it off and leave it to the fairies and the beings and all of that. It wasn't helping. I was still going down the tubes. And so finally, John again looked at me and said, what do you think about starting something here? And I said, okay, I surrender. Something's wrong with my life. I have a tithe envelope in my drawer that is stuffed with money, and I don't have any place in my world to give it. And so we came back. We came up with a flyer and sent a flyer out to people that we knew in Asheville and said, do you want to just get together for coffee? And we'll talk about the possibility of maybe starting a little something in Asheville. Well, before we knew it, 30 people had called and said, yes, we've been waiting, it's about time. And John and I looked at each other and said, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So we were in this old farmhouse. We were on 40 acres. We were in this old farmhouse, and with a big attic upstairs, you know. So we took all the furniture out of the dining room and carried it up to the attic. We took all the furniture out of the living room, or part of the furniture out of the living room, and put it in the dining room. And we went to Office Depot and got 30 of actually the gray folding chairs in the other room, the ones in the worst shape. Those are the ones that we bought when we came back from the beach. And that morning, 30 people showed up. We had a boombox, we had Whitney Houston singing to us and Barbara Streisand and all of that. And from that, this center emerged. It was only a couple of months after being in, it was John's uncle's farmhouse that we were living in. Of being in the farmhouse, we had owned a little trailer down that old farm country driveway. And we had lived in there when John's uncle lived in the house, and then he moved out. So we moved into the farmhouse and rented out the trailer 2 months after starting the center on January 15th, 1995. The tenants came to us and said,
You know, when we first started to, when we first came to rent, we told you that we were gonna save our money and buy a house. Well, we saved our money, we bought a house and we're moving out. And so we had packed 30 people into our living room, and people started going out there because we'd been kind of looking around town, maybe a strip center, maybe a little storefront, and they looked at that trailer and they went, it's got electricity, it's got water, it's got bathrooms. All we need to do is cut the front off and add an assembly area to it, which we did. We took sawzalls and crowbars and sledgehammers, and on Sunday afternoon, everybody would go out there and beat on that thing, and then we poured a concrete slab in front of it, and we built a 30 by 30 foot room, covered it all in siding as if that would conceal what it was. And we had the center that we had for 5 years, the lower level, and then because it's a trailer, you know how you have to walk up, that was the mezzanine. And we had a little railing on it so people wouldn't just fall over the edge. And we had 2 bathrooms and a kitchen. It was great. But it came from my commitment to tithe where I am spiritually fed, and to know that if I am not being spiritually fed, something is very, very wrong in my life. That I need that in my life. I need it to be sane. I need to do what I do for me. I'm really glad you guys come, but I need to do what I do for me so that I can stay clear about who I am, what I am doing, why I am here, and what is really going on. Through that journey of almost 23 years now of this center expanding, it has tithed on every penny that has come in. We have held on to our faith and trust through times of building this center with a $4,000 a month construction note, meeting in the other center where we took in between $200 and $300 a week, and still making that work. Just do the math, it doesn't work. It worked for us. We've held on to our faith through the economic calamity of 2008, 2009, when so much happened. And I remember standing up on the stage on Sunday going, you know, if they come to foreclose on us, I will meet in the parking lot. I believe in who we are and what we are doing, and I will not give up on that simply because of numbers on a piece of paper. And all of that worked out because I believe we tithe. One of the things about tithing is that it forces you to develop faith and trust. People go, oh, I want faith and trust. Well, are you tithing? Hell no. You want my money? People just want to take my money. I don't have enough money. Well, you have faith and trust in not enough instead of faith and trust in more than enough. One of the things I love about tithing, because I'm so psychologically focused at times, and I love to read people and analyze people, is that if you are not tithing, my question is why? Well, I'm not tithing because I don't have enough to tithe. I'm not tithing because giving my money away like that is crazy. That's my grocery money, that's my gas money, that's my rent or my mortgage payment. Well, then we are creating lack and limitation and fear in our lives. And giving 10% of your income to wherever you are spiritually fed brings up all of your beliefs about whether or not you really are supported in life, whether or not you really live in an abundant universe where there is more than enough for all, or whether there isn't. It brings it right smack up in our faces. I love when Andrea Bishop, our a member of our board and our treasurer, gets up on stage to talk about tithing. She said, you know, every time I write out a tithe check, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And one would think I would get more comfortable with it because I'm making more and more money. She says it still scares the pants off of me to write out a check for thousands of dollars. It scares me even though I've brought in 10 times that amount. But she said when I first started tithing, I was working for somebody, I didn't like my job, I didn't like the office, I didn't like the people that I worked with, and the first thing that happened was they told me I had to get out of the practice. She was kicked out of the practice she was in. Best thing that ever happened to her, because she got her own office and started her own practice and has thrived since then. So don't expect, if you're moving into tithing or if you've been tithing for a while, that, oh, now I'm tithing and everything is just all touchy-feely, wonderful, happy, feel good. Sometimes it's, what are we, crazy? Are we nuts? That was a gift to me. I don't have to tithe on that. Lack and limitation. I believe that I tithe on whatever hits my hand. And so if it's the sale of a house, whatever I get, the bank takes theirs, the lawyers take theirs, the county takes theirs, whatever I get, I tithe on. If somebody hands me money, I tithe on that. If somebody gives me something to pay for something, I tithe on that. I tithe on everything that hits my hand. This center tithes. And I believe that it is our staunch stance on tithing that has allowed us to be on 6 acres in the city of Asheville with this wonderful facility where people can find us like Shelley and go, I never thought I'd find another community like this. And here we are, because we can have the solid footing to be able to live the life that we want to live. And it doesn't just happen to you. There are, I think there's steps that you have to go through. Often for me it was steps of abject poverty. I mean, I was starving, I was giving blood, I was giving plasma twice a week. That's the maximum that you can give it. And if you do it twice a week, on the 3rd week you get a little bonus, and on the 4th week you got like $15, and this was in the 70s. Boy, that was payday for me. I got a bonus of $15 for having let them have my blood 8 times in the last month. That's crazy stuff. I would not eat. I would walk instead of take the bus. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have anything until I started tithing. And then it was amazing how quickly things changed. Once I started tithing my little measly 37 cents, I heard about a seated job at the library. I love books. I went to it. They were not going to hire me. I was too old. I just moved to town. It was in Eugene, Oregon. And I went in there and I sold myself. And I said, you want me. You don't want some young kid. You want someone who's committed, who has a child to take care of, who understands books, who can read, who knows the Dewey Decimal System. You want somebody who's smart. I am smart. I was the first person to apply. You want me. And so they hired me. And a seated job, if you remember back in the 70s, that was guaranteed. That was government pay. You know, all I did was go in and issue people library cards and read all day. I got a car for $100 that actually ran with treatment. To know that this car runs in mechanical alignment with the laws of the physical universe, and that I get where I'm going easily and directly, meaning no flat tires, no tickets, nothing like that. And then I would put the key in and turn it. Always get your head screwed on straight before you take action. And then I had an apartment. And so I was set. I was surviving in that. But it happened very, very quickly after I put that 37 cents in the basket. Now, if anybody had told me, if you invest 37 cents, you're going to get a job, a car, and a place to live for you and your 3-year-old child, I would have said, what a deal that is. But part of the thing is you don't get the guarantees. Sometimes when people move into this idea of tithing, especially if they've been holding on to limiting beliefs for a long time, then there's some growth that happens. There's process in it. Sometimes when we start to tithe, we'll create some kind of disaster to prove to ourselves that tithing was never a good idea anyway. See, I told you it wasn't a good idea. Now look what's happened. Let me go back to my limited life, my struggle and my misery, because that's what I know. I tell you, it's worth hanging in there. It is worth proving this spiritual law, setting law in motion and watching it manifest. And I want to offer to you to check yourselves out. Sometimes people say, well, I tithe, I'm a tither. Yeah? Do you tithe on everything?
Yes.
Well, Thank you, whoever said that. But you can check yourself out. Well, I got this, you know, it was cash. I don't think you should have to tithe on your baseball tickets or if somebody buys you lunch or something like that. But if it comes into your hand, do you tithe on it? Or is there a line that says, well, this wasn't really tithable money? And I would encourage you, if you've got that going on, that is you saying, I only want to be so happy. I only want to be so rich. I only want to grow so much. I just want to get out of the pain. I don't want to really be in the joy and the power. So I'll tithe on this, but if I get an inheritance, if I sell something, I'm not going to tithe on that. I would encourage you to move into absolutely, the tithers are going, well, that's dumb. I see people's faces around and going, really? People do that? People do that. So I would encourage you to really move out into a trust and faith, not in an outside God that's going to give you money, but in the creative ability within you, in the support of the universe that lifts you up over every obstacle and can find a solution no matter what and have things happen. I encourage you to move into that state where you go, I'm going to give it a go. Yes, I'm going to tithe on my business. Yes, I'm going to tithe on my personal money. Yes, I'm going to tithe on this because this is the first step. Everybody take a deep breath. Tithing is a baby step. It should be a given. Not because there's some kind of dogma, but because you have to be in the flow. It's like going to a breathing workshop and someone saying you have to exhale. Exhaling is a given to learn how to breathe. You have to learn how to give out into the universe. And when you give out, not to charity, not to need, you want to give to that, fine, but that's not the tithe. 1% is not a tithe. Why do you go from 10% to 1%? Fear. Fear. 5% is not a tithe. You go to 5% because you want to couch your bets. Yeah, well, I can say I'm doing it, but I'm not really doing it, as if the universe is fooled like that. A 10% tithe, it's easy math. Take it right off the top. Do it first, because if you wait to do it last, your limited thinking and fear will create no money to tithe from. But if you take it right off the top and you go, I'm tithing and I'm trusting that I always have more than enough to do whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do it, that I am master of my money, I am the captain of my ship, I determine my destiny, the universe goes, whoa! Wait a minute, let's pour down on you. Let's have miracles happen. Let's have things unfold. Things that needed to start 20 years ago. Let's have them work out so that you've got it right then and there. Breezy, what'd you want to say?
How do you deal with, like, if you're given physical things as opposed to cash?
I don't tithe on physical things.
Okay, that's
I tithe on money because I want to create money.
If you sell those physical things,
Oh, yeah, but I'm just saying,
Then it's money.
if somebody, for example, somebody gives you a car, how would you tithe on that type of
I wouldn't, but I would also understand that I have been given a gift and that I need to be generous in my world. So however that moves from me, because I never want to be congested, I never want to be constipated in my money. I want my money to flow. I want it to come in, I want it to go out. I never want to hold on to a belief that says, oh, I've got to keep this and hold it tight because there might not ever be anything else. So I would give out into my world whatever that felt good with. Somebody said, oh, I really like that, I would give it to them. Joe.
All this tithe was made me think of John D. Rockefeller. He once said, I never would have been able to tithe my first $1 million I ever made had I not tithed my first salary, which was $1.50 per week.
Right, John D. Rockefeller had a tithe. His salary was $1.50 or the tithe?
Per week.
So the salary was $1.50, so he tithed 15 cents.
And he's saying he wouldn't have been able to tithe his first $1 million
No,
if he didn't
people
start
say, oh,
doing
when
the
I
job.
win the $1 million, I'll give. No, you won't. You're liars. You're lying to yourself. You've got to be able to establish in consciousness a trust and faith that there is more than enough. if you're going to be able to reach out when you really need it, and know that the universe supports you, that you can demonstrate what you want to demonstrate when you want to demonstrate. Someone who goes to the doctor and gets a diagnosis of some dirty, rotten, rack and fratchet thing that has not established a consciousness of faith and trust and support has a much smaller possibility of getting through that than someone who has learned how to create. And in order to learn how to create, you've got to change your limiting thoughts into thoughts of expansion and abundance. And I know no better tool than to talk about your money. Because money is real. Money is right there. Your checkbook. I put the deposit in, I write the check. Somebody gives me cash, I get the change, and I give it out. When we work with our money, it becomes very real. It's not, kumbaya. It's money. And as we learn to master our money and to set spiritual law in motion, and then money comes in. I love the thing about the dollar, Sylvia. You cannot have real cash show up in your mailbox. Oh, there's an envelope with $1 in it. I love that. That's the spirit talking to you saying, I can do anything. That's the law saying you can set me in motion and have anything you want show up. There's no difference between the dollar and the $1 million, the yacht, the trip to France. I mean, Chuck Camper went to Paris to do a photo shoot. Wow, that's fantastic. Our Chuck Camper used to bake cakes for us every week. Went to Paris to do a photo shoot. He hopped over to Belgium to take a class on lace making so that when he makes his custom handmade bridal gowns, he makes his own lace for them because he wants to. That's prosperity. And Chuck Camper tithes on every penny that comes into his life. He tithes because he knows that what he is doing is exercising dominion over his life and his world. Whenever we back out, whenever we cop out, whenever we run and hide and say that doesn't count, that's not really money that needs to be tithed on, what we're doing is we're getting rid of huge amounts of incoming cash. Because we're saying, no, I don't really want to be powerful and prosperous and strong. People say, oh, I want to be a millionaire. Being a millionaire takes some work. Takes some work. So when you are opening up, when you are accepting greater good, you're not just sitting on the couch eating bonbons. You're engaged in life. You're active. You're handling things. You're doing stuff. You're going out, Dan's over there laughing. You're going out there starting companies and meeting with people and flying places because you are creating something. It doesn't just happen to you. And so what I want to encourage, because this is Barbara the teacher, I teach every one of my students to tithe. Every one of my students to tithe. I know no better way to make your life better than to take 10% and give it to where you're spiritually fed. I would love that if you gave it to this center, but it doesn't have to go to this center. It goes where you're spiritually fed. And wherever that is, that will prosper you, that will lift you, that will grow. And then once you've got that going on and you've got money coming in and miracles in the mailbox, assuring you that you can create anything that you want in life, then you can move out from that. Because a tithe goes to where you're spiritually fed. So if you want to give to what city are you in?
Green Mountain.
The Green Mountain Animal.
We're Blue Heart Sanctuary.
The Blue Heart Sanctuary. If you want to give to the Blue Heart Sanctuary in North Carolina, then you've got money to do that. If you want to give to Brother Wolf, if you want to give to the Red Cross, if you want to give to Aunt Molly, whatever, you've got money to do that. That's not your tithe. Don't play a game. And don't make a big deal out of your tithe. I mean, we do it here because we want to celebrate the increased income. But don't use your tithe as a way to manipulate someone and say, here, I'm giving you this, and then you owe me. No, tithes are given completely free of strings. So you give it and you don't care what they do with it. Doesn't matter. It's not your business anymore. It's not yours. And in my teaching of people how to prosper, which I said a couple of weeks ago is so very important to me, because it is so critically important that we are able to prosper here in the U.S. in 2017 so that we can hold the light for people all over the world to be able to feed their kids and to live in peace and harmony. It is so important to me that my students do this. I hammer tithing. Tithing is important. Tithing is not optional. If you don't tithe, you're going to lose it somewhere else. Check your books. Check your books. You want to be in control of your money. You want to decide what happens to you. You want to say what you spend your money on and how you live your life. And the way that I know to do that is to tithe. I started tithing with 37 cents. I have never missed a tithe since then. When I was on food stamps, and they were not these handy little cards, they were a little packet of things you tore out of a book. When I was on food stamps, I would take 10% at the beginning of the month of my food stamps and put them in the basket at the church. I didn't know they threw them away. But that was my way of saying, this is what I have. This is what I have, and this is what I'm going to give. I would never stop tithing. Somebody could say, Barbara, I'll give you $1 million to stop tithing. No, thank you. No, thank you. Because there are millions more where that tithe will take me than stopping. So I know that there are just heartfelt feelings about tithing. And I think that that's important for us to understand and to share. And if you have any financial difficulty at all, check yourself out. Are you tithing? Are you tithing a full 10%? Because if it's 9.999%, you're pulling back. And my question is, why are you pulling back? What is it that you don't want to go for, to trust and have faith in? What limiting belief do you have that says that 0.0001% is going to make or break you? You know, we're creating our realities. We are the ones that make or break ourselves. And so if I have a fear, and the fear says, don't give it away, you might never have it again, I have to give it away. I have to give it away just so that fear doesn't tell me who I am. I am Barbara Waterhouse, and I am bigger than any fear that ever exists in the world. I created the fear. If I then bow down before the fear and cop out and freak out and give up, I did the whole scenario. So if I've created a fear, I have to bust right through it, and I bust through it as quickly as I can. I bust through it with clear intention, demanding from the universe that I get my tenfold return back, and that I stand clear in my awareness that life always supports me in everything that I do. And then it does. I had some dark nights in 2008. 2009, our income just plummeted, and we still were paying $10,000. At that time, we were paying $13,500 a month mortgage payments, plural, for this center, and the income wasn't there. And so the only thing I could work on was my head, work on my head, work on my head, work on my head. It never once occurred to me not to tithe. For me, not tithing would be the kiss of death, and so I won't do it. And I will always encourage everyone that is in any of my classes, if you don't tithe, I would ask you to look at yourself in the mirror and go, why not? Why not? Why don't you do that? Because I am afraid, and I have decided that I will be afraid for the rest of my life. Then you are no student of mine. Because Barbara Waterhouse, as teacher, teaches you how to bust through your fears. Period. End of story. And when you do, you will have amazing demonstrations and miracles in your life. I know it. I've had thousands of students, thousands of students. I've been doing this for 40 some odd years. I have watched people who have been in this very room homeless recreate their lives. I have watched people who have been here and they have been faced with bankruptcy and eviction and unemployment recreate their lives because they were willing to take the risk. And so I encourage you, take the risk. If you haven't taken it yet, jump off. You're going to fly. It's great. It's wonderful. And now I'm going to turn this over to John.
Okay. Yeah? They say it's not enough if you're not sweating.
Yeah, if your palms aren't sweating, you're not going near fast enough. That was Mario and you ready?
So, I started tithing when I was a kid. I think I was at least 12. I grew up in a Baptist church, and the minister talked about tithing. And I remember once, I cut grass and did things like that to have money, and I would always tithe on what I got, because that's what we did in the Baptist church. And there was a time where the money I had, I wanted to buy a gift for a really dear friend for her birthday, and I was going to her party. And if I tithed, I wasn't going to have enough. That's at least the thought that was in my head. So I decided to tithe, and then suddenly out of nowhere, I got twice as much money as I wanted to buy the gift. I told that to my Baptist minister, and he had me up on the stage that next Sunday to tell that story. Because the thing about tithing, it doesn't have a theological basis. Yes, it comes out of the Judeo-Christian beginnings, but it's something bigger than that. One thing that I want you to know about tithing is it is not a spiritual principle. It's a spiritual practice. And there's a distinction there. Because a spiritual principle, you don't have to do anything. It's simply a principle. But a spiritual practice means it requires action. So what do you think the spiritual principle is? What would you call the spiritual principle that tithing is based on? I call it the law of circulation. Meaning that there's this dynamic flow of energy, of substance, that is always moving. And if I want to get in on it, I have to do something. But that's the practice, and the practice is tithing. I'm so grateful to whoever had the wisdom way back, thousands of years ago to come up with this idea of 10% going to God, because that's the way it's presented. And there's something to that, and I'll talk about that for a minute, but the thing about tithing that is so real is that you can't do it in theory. You can't think about it and have it happen. And a lot of people try to use the law of circulation by thinking about it, by wanting something, by yearning for something, by setting a goal that this will come to me. That doesn't work with the law of circulation. The only way the law of circulation works is if you move it. And you can only move it by giving. You can't get. It doesn't work that way. You have to give. You have to start or activate the law by doing something, and the way you do that is with tithing. And it's so cool, and that 10% is so powerful because nobody is not going to make it on 10% less than what they have. But it's enough that you notice it, you see it. You see that number. We talk about our board member that gets nervous when she sees the amount that she's writing that check for, but it gets your attention. A tithe will get your attention. If you have nothing, 36 cents doesn't make a big difference, but it's the idea that I'm going to move by giving something. I'm going to take action. I'm going to make something happen here. And we used to call this program with the wonderful affirmation that we say, an unexpected income program. We realize that's ridiculous. You need to expect it. You absolutely should expect it. So let's don't ever think that we shouldn't expect to have great value come into our lives in the form of money or anything else. But the way to activate it is by moving your money out and doing it with a mindset that says, this is a good thing. This is a valuable action for me to take. Now, that idea of tithing is giving money to God actually has some value. Now, you know that everything is God, that the presence of the divine is everywhere and always. So you could argue that, well, if that's so, then I could give the money to me and it's a tithe. No. So we refine that by saying we tithe where we receive spiritual nurturing, where we get value from life. And if you hear the stories from Edwin Gaines, that could be anywhere. But if your spiritual community is not participating in that, then something's wacko. So it's logical that this would be a place where you would tithe. All 10% every week, all the time? I don't know. I mean, I tithe 10% of everything that comes to me to this center. But I give way more money. I mean, I go and speak at a lot of centers in our movement. And every time I go, I put a check for $100 in their offering. Because that's what I do. And it has always worked for me. So the idea of generating that law of circulation by giving should be going on a lot in your life. How can you give? Now the discipline of tithing is done with a real mindset that this is working in my life. You know, you can do what Andrea does and freak out when you're writing a check, and it still can work very nicely. But if you come to your tithing with fear that this is going to mess everything up, it will mess everything up. Because that's the mindset that you have. And if you think you have to manage your tithe, that you have to calculate everything, that check that you got from your work, oh, and by the way, your work is not your source. But if you do that, and you go, yeah, it's just the numbers don't work for me to actually give 10%, then you're trying to work a deal with God, and it doesn't work like that. That's shooting yourself in the foot. The way you tithe, it's the way the center tithes is, you have money that comes in and you tithe on it. We have a practitioner that goes to the PayPal thing on our website all the time. Doesn't matter. $30, $50, $300. It's just like all the time we're getting. And Barb's funny because she'll respond to all of them with a thank you. And it's like 3 times a day she's got to send a thank you out. Okay, because this person is practicing the law of tithing in their life the way it works for them. The way we do it here at our center is we tithe on Thursday. All the money from the weekend, from Sunday, from classes, it all gets finalized and deposited no later than Thursday. And a tithe check is written and put on my desk. I love that. I just love that. So I get to bless it. And many times it's more than one. You know, we at times tithe to several places. We often tithe the Centers for Spiritual Living, our organization that we're affiliated with. But we have tithed to other places because they've done important things. Individuals or people or organizations that have supported us. So we tithe to them. And it goes out on Thursday. And I hear of these other communities that try to manage this. Try to, make sure, well, you gotta pay the rent first. And then you gotta pay the minister, and, the light bill, and oh golly, looky there, there's not enough. But I never hear anybody say, I tithe right up front, and then we didn't have enough money to pay our bills. It may look like that in the moment, but don't buy into that, because the energy of saying, I am taking this action in my life and writing the check and giving this money to the source of my spiritual nurturing, and I got enough. And then weirdly, and I've got a nodding heads going on, everything gets paid. Oh, and there's leftover. How'd that happen? Right? And then money shows up from some source you didn't even imagine, but there it was. How does that work? And then suddenly, you're developing reserves in your accounts, and you have more money than you needed. How does that happen? It's the law of circulation, and it's too big and too powerful for us to logically figure out. Yet it still happens regularly, and we celebrate it. And that idea of sending out that tithe check should be the most joyous experience of your day. To be able to write that check or put that check in the mail or in the basket here, or whatever you do, having that feeling should be joyous. It should fill you with gladness that you get to do this, because it means that you're always going to have more than enough. And that has certainly been true in my life. When I left the Baptist church, I stopped tithing. And those were the years that I made a lot of money and had nothing to show for it. Because I think we got up to about $6 million oil field equipment business that had my name on the door. And still, I had to run home and leave checks on my electric meter so they wouldn't turn it off. How does that happen? Because I had no compass on how this thing worked. I had learned how to make a bunch of money, but I hadn't learned how to use it. So this idea of tithing really is a tool for knowing that you are in charge of your money, that you are bigger than your money, and that you will make your money work by your first check being your tithe. And then everything else gets paid and the reserves continue to grow. It's quite amazing. Michelle.
What does circulation mean in this time?
It means that the energy of spirit, and money is energy, is in constant motion. And when I try to block it, what I do is I end up not having that flowing as dynamically as it can in my life. So that idea of circulation is that it's constantly moving. Energy is constantly moving. Now everything is energy. And this idea of money is simply energy. And what it really is an agreement between people that this stuff we have, cash or numbers on a bank account, are real, and that they're something that are exchangeable and usable. And this whole dynamic of how we do finances is all based on agreements. But it's energy. It's absolutely energy. There's way, way more money in the world than there is cash. And cash is only a small amount of the circulating money. Most of it is simply agreements between institutions and organizations and individuals with those institutions that says what the bottom line of what you have. It's all really kind of made up. It's very malleable. It's very movable. So when we start thinking in rigid terms about money, that's when we get in trouble. When we think there's not enough, then we have blocked it, and we are working contrary to the law of circulation. We are using it because it's our thoughts that guide it, but it doesn't seem to work with theories, with simply, I know that I'm going to have plenty of money to do everything. That's a lovely thought, but if we don't take some action to make that happen, it doesn't have the same impetus, it doesn't have the same constitution to happen. But when we take that action, when our first action is to give, when we're putting it out to give, not as an exchange, it's not like, okay, when I pay my rent, I'm saying I get to live in the house for a month. That's the agreement. But when I do my tithe, it's that I'm being spiritually fed, but I'm not making an accounting of the spiritual value that I'm getting. I'm claiming it by my giving. My giving is determining that. I've always told people that come to class at this center, don't come here and get all these great ideas and put $1 in the basket and think you're going to get to keep them. You're not. They're not going to stay with you. They can't, because they're so valuable and you have not given any value to it. So you've got to have that ability to see that what you're getting is amazing, and that flow is brilliant and wonderful. I got to say a few more things. Are you trying to get me to stop?
No, there was somebody else had their hand up.
David, did you have your hand up?
I did.
Okay. What do you want to say?
I wanted to touch on, we cannot tithe to ourselves. Thank you. But we can match our tithe and savings, right?
Absolutely. That's a great...
shouldn't we do that anyway?
I think that everyone should, and that's called a 10-10-80.
I mean, that's just putting your faith
A
double.
10-10-80. 10% tithe, 10% savings, 80% to pay your bills. And if anybody's doing that, their value is growing.
Automatic withdrawal.
Yeah, you can do that. Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see. I want to talk about where this really is working. One of the great church institutions that uses tithing effectively is the Mormon Church. Do we have any former recovering Mormons in the room? Am I not right? Do not they make that an imperative in that movement? Everybody tithes. And what I've heard is that you've got to have an accountant who's a Mormon look at your books and do your taxes so that they know that you're giving 10%. Wow. I mean, it's rigid in that way. But you know what? There are so many millionaires in the Mormon Church. Rich. Because that's their culture. They know that's what they do. And they have this high ethic for tithing. And you've seen their buildings. Those monstrous white things with gold all over the top. It's like, that's because they practice the practice of tithing. And they use the law of circulation to make their culture work. That they've got down. I don't know about some of the rest of the stuff they do, but they got that one down. One of the questions that always comes up with Edwin is, should I tithe on my gross income or my net income? Well, you know, you can do it any way you want, but do you want to have an expansive success financially, or do you want to have a moderate success financially? Yeah, yeah. Well, and this center does that. It's the weirdest thing. Most people say, if you're in business, and I'm not arguing if you do this, tithe on your profits. The money that you have profit after you've got your product and sold it and made a profit, tithe on your profits. That's reasonable. Yeah, that's not what we do here. And the little example of that is that this bookstore back here. We tithe 10% on every book that's sold here. But we don't, you know, we make like 20% maybe on a book. But half of that is our tithe because it's money that came in. Barbara touched her hand, so we're going to tithe on it. And she's the one that got me tithing. When I left the Baptist church, as I said, I stopped. And when I got in a relationship with Barbara, tithing was it. I mean, she was my teacher, and she said, you tithe, so we tithed. And then when we were in a relationship, it was, of course we tithe. And the way we got through that thing she talked about, 2008, 2009, was we had this strong ethic that this center always pays the minister. Always, never, and God, I've seen so many centers do this. They say, the minister says, you can owe it to me. Don't ever owe your minister money. That's not a good relationship.
Don't ever owe your tithe.
Yeah, exactly. So what we did during those times was we insisted to get paid, and we did. The center wrote us a check. And there were many times when there was not money in that account to cover it. But we wrote the check. And I took the check and I deposited it. And I wrote a check for exactly the same amount back to the center. But the center paid us. That was the ethic that was necessary. And it worked. And when it was done, we were back on our feet and moving forward, and Barbara and I were sound. It was not a problem. We made it work. And you do that. This idea of the 10% is the tithe. But how are you using this law of circulation to make your life work? What are you doing that says, sometimes it requires drastic action? There was a church in San Diego, a wonderful minister out there. It was a startup, and they were in their first 5 years, and they weren't making enough money to make ends meet. So the minister called his mentor. His name was Lloyd Tupper. And Lloyd told him, well, are you tithing? And he said, absolutely, and we're still not making it. He said, well, up your tithe. What? Yeah, so he did.
That was San Jose.
It was, I would know, San Diego.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know, yeah, it was.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So they did, and it only took a couple months, and boom, they were out of it. It was working again.
Francis used to say, tithe on what you want to get.
Yeah.
What do you want to get? Start tithing on that. Establish that in consciousness. Make it happen. Set the law in motion.
That's all right. That's all right. And this idea of that first 10% going to God is you saying, I'm being spiritually fed in my life. If you're not being spiritually fed, then that's you. It's like it was on Barbara when she had a sock drawer full of money. Because that's what was happening. But what that was to wake us up to the fact that it was time. And I waited years for this woman to say yes to that. And when we stood out on that bridge to No Name Key, and I did not ask her. I did not stand on that bridge and say, you want to do it now? That was in her head. She just turned and looked at me. She says, okay, it's time. I knew exactly what she meant. And it was a good thing, and it worked. And we didn't have any money. You know, we didn't have any money when we got this land. We didn't have reserves. We had no building fund. We simply were a tithing community, and we've always tithed. And we've always had enough money to do everything we've done. All these centers that do these special events to raise money, we just tithe. We tithe, and it has always worked. It's worked in my life, it's worked in Barbara's life, and I know it's worked in a number of your lives. And I think I've probably gone over, but I've really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Yeah, I know, but there's food. Hot food, hot food. What?
It's a cricket. It's a cricket.
Dan and Carrie. There's Dan. There's Carrie. Come on back.
While you're coming back, I would like to acknowledge and have you all acknowledge the most newly licensed practitioners at our center. Kristen and Carrie and Michelle and Kathy, congratulations. And look, they got the practitioner license, they're still in class, I love it.
We rolling? So isn't it wonderful to hear John and I just tell you these great stories about how your life can work and everything just works out perfectly? I have found that it's even better when you hear stories from people that you know. So I'm going to invite some people that I know are tithers to come up and share their experiences and thoughts and feelings about tithing. And I think I will begin with Chris Anderson and Dee Brooks. Come on up.
We'll start with, similar to John, I was raised Catholic. But in the church, they send around this basket, as Marva was talking about. And as a little girl, I had absolutely no clue what this little quarter was for every week. I just knew I got a quarter from my mother and I had to put it in the basket. I couldn't put it in my pocket, I had to put it in the basket. So that was my first tithing experience. And I never really learned what that was all about until I became an adult. I knew that I was giving away this change, but as I became an adult and I finally understood, and believe it or not, when I walked in the doors of the center. It took many years in between for me to really realize what tithing was all about. I had filed bankruptcy when I first moved to town, and I barely had 2 nickels to rub together, and I came in here and I put those pieces of change in the basket, and then it was $1, and then it was $5, and then it was 10, and of course now I'm up to the tithe of my salary of 10%, as well as with Dee splitting as she puts in her 10% of salary. And so we have become very prosperous with our tithe. And we have lake property, we have cars, we have boats, we have lots and lots of friends who love to come and enjoy our prosperity. And we enjoy that. That to us is our blessing. So as we tithe, we give, and people give back to us, and we're not expecting anything, but it just comes to us. The love that everyone in this room shares with us, as we give to them, they give us back love. And it's all from the tithing. It's from tithing and love and just being here. So I suggest and recommend tithing highly because it's brought us a wonderful income. And my income was, as I said, nothing. I was bankrupt, I had nothing, I wrecked my car, I didn't have a car to drive, I mean, it was bad. And then all of a sudden, here comes my life from 2 quarters and a dime and $1. And so here I am. And now I have this beautiful woman in my life, which also is part of my prosperity, and I'll let her share a little bit.
So I was Methodist. You know the difference in the Baptist and the Methodist, right? Here we go. Methodist will speak to you in a little
Methodist can read.
Yeah, Methodist can read. My father was a retired Methodist minister, and all I knew was tithing. That's all, I was many, many stories. And as an adult in a Methodist church, I made that commitment every year at the, whatever we called it, the annual tithing something, whatever it was, with my ex-husband, but we never fulfilled those tithes. There was always something that came up, 3 children, all kinds of stuff. You know this drill. My life was a reflection of that lack and that fear and holding on to what I thought I needed instead of giving what I had. And then I had nothing. Well, that's not exactly true, because my life on March the 17th, 2008, right, manifested into the most amazing life ever. Coming into this center with Chris, inviting me to come and walking in, and I've heard the stories from friends who were so taken aback by everything that was said, and they were scared, and not me. It was, yay, this is where I'm supposed to be. It felt instantly like home. And, you know, all of the stuff that goes with the breakup of a relationship of 27 years and all of the things that happened, Chris was adamant that we were tithing on our income. Yeah, but I gotta pay what was that kind of spousal support? You know, to a man that hadn't worked for 7 years, the last 7 years of our marriage, but I'm supposed to pay him some money. And we paid it for a period of time. But we also tithed on the money that we had.
Right.
And the month that my divorce was final and my last child graduated from college, thank you, Jesus. And all of that money that I had been putting towards education and spousal support, I will never forget sitting beside the lake at the old state park at Lake James, and we had gone to see 2 different boats.
The start.
Yeah, that's the start. And Chris and I talking about what we could now do with this extra income that we had, because we were no longer paying spousal support. And right. And she is calculating, because I have South Carolina math skills, if that means anything to you. And she's calculating what the boat payment would be, and the increase we would need to have in our tithe, because we now had this extra income. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And look how it all worked out.
Yeah.
You know, life is so beautiful and life is so wonderful, and I am so grateful for the opportunity to live this life in abundance. Absolute abundance.
Great prosperity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We started here 15 years ago.
Wow.
We got an anniversary card the other day. It doesn't seem like it's been 15 years.
You came for summer prosperity.
Right, and we sat on the back row back there.
Of course you did,
The room
near the
was
door.
full.
It's like yesterday.
We had just jumped off a cliff and bought a business. We've had it about maybe 6 months when we got here.
That's tough.
And that was, unlike me, I didn't take risks, I didn't do things like that. But we've had it for 15 years. We went through the 2008, 2009, and our
Unscathed.
yeah, unscathed. The business did exactly what it did the 2 years before that. And every time, and we've tithed since we got here on everything. And I just remembered that I got $2 on the lottery today. I got to put another 20 cents.
Winner, chicken dinner.
And it's amazing. Our life has changed so much. Not only do we have an abundance of money, we have an abundance of grandchildren. And
they're getting big.
yeah, they are. They're almost grown, or they think they are anyway. But it's just been marvelous. But the tithing works. Let me tell you, we go through that dark night of the recession. And one of my friends said after that, she said, do you know how many small businesses went out during that? Now, they didn't even think of that. I hadn't even thought of it. And we went right through it. And once upon a time, we had a slight reversal. And one advantage of being a practitioner is you get to have a session with Barbara. And I was a little bit freaky there during this time. And she and I had a nice talk about it, and she treated for me. And I want you to know, during the prosperity class, we always have an upsurge in business. I think you should start it in June. So, and everything has worked out. We've paid every bill. We've had money. We've gone on trips. Saved. And David's having savings taken out of his bank account, which he never did before.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So, it works.
Yeah.
Here comes the money magnet. No kidding.
Keep tithing and it will.
No kidding. I just realized, sitting here listening to you, that I missed half my tithe this month. I usually tithe about 500, and I only did 200. So I just went in and swiped that card. Now I feel better.
Good.
I've always been really weird about money. I've always had trouble with it. I've always had a lot of it come to me, and then a lot more goes out. So then I have like nothing left. And I had a workers' comp case a couple years ago that ended up paying me $14,000. And I had that money, and I did tithe on that money. But then the money started going down, and I got scared. And that's what it really is for me. It's all about the fear. I've just been terrified. That's just what Barbara was talking about. About, you know, it's easy to tithe when you have all this money coming in. But when you don't think you can eat or pay your bills or put gas in the car, it's hard. And one thing I had to do was really take a look at that fear. And I had been working to get a service connection for, when I was in the Navy, they went after me for being gay in the Navy. So I was the subject of some investigations, which really, really were frightening. They could have put me in jail just for who I love. And I carried that with me for so long. And so finally it was actually considered MST, which is military sexual trauma. So I applied for a service connection for that. And I know I told you all this before, but I got 100% disability. So one day I woke up and there was a check, there was $40,000 in my bank account. And the first thing I did was call Barbara and John. I said, you're getting a check for $4,000. And then from then on, you're going to be getting 10% of what I get every month. And I've been keeping up with that. And I'm not afraid anymore. I literally am not frightened anymore of money. I mean, I've been wanting an iPhone for a long time. So finally I said, the heck with it, I'm going to go do it. And I didn't realize I had gotten a refund from something I had sent, a backpack I had sent back for $200. And I owed some money on the, oh no, because I traded it in, I didn't have to pay anything. Whereas I would have had to pay $150 just to buy out of the the phone program or whatever. So now I got this new iPhone, and I'm very happy with that. But what's, the thing that really matters is not the stuff. It's not the stuff. It's living without the fear. I mean, there's gotta be stuff. I mean, my photography business has taken off like crazy. I just did pictures for somebody and I had said to her, oh, don't pay me. She paid me anyway. And, you know, that little things like that, I mean, that's a gift. But my business has taken off, and it's all because I tithe. I can only just say tithe, tithe, tithe. Because, like I said, it took away my fear. I don't worry about where my next buck is coming from. I don't worry about, I'm going on vacation in 2 weeks to the Jersey Shore for a week. And, you know, it's a gift. And it wouldn't have happened if it weren't for Barbara and John and their teachings here and teachings of Ernest. And my being willing, that's the main thing, is my being willing and willing to open up to the prosperity that I deserved. Because I never felt like I deserved it. And that was the kicker. When you're walking around all the time with the cloud over your head, or like Pigpen with the cloud under his feet, you know, it's just not gonna happen. But I had to do a lot of real soul searching, I went through a lot of pain, emotional pain, and today I have people that love me. I have great friends here. My family accepts me, even though they still think I'm a little strange. That's okay, because I am. But tithing taught me to stay in the flow. It's like they say in a certain program, you can't, if you don't give it away, you can't keep it. So I get to not only keep it, but I get to give it away. And I do love to give it away, but don't get any ideas.
All the loves are coming up. I just want to say that Barbara often will come in my office when a big check shows up, and she'll say, so-and-so just gave us gave the center check for so many hundreds or thousands of dollars. And my immediate first thought is, good for them.
Yes.
Good for them. Yes. It's not like, oh good, the center's got more money. No, good for them. That's what makes it work.
Well, I grew up Baptist, and when I was a kid, I actually thought you tithed so you could not go to hell. I really did.
Somebody said that to you.
Yeah, somebody said that to me, and I thought that, but, you know, fire insurance. And as an adult, still being in the Baptist church, I learned that it was more out of obligation, a sense of duty to do it. And then later on, when I left that and started exploring other spiritual programs, and then I got into a 12-step, and it talked about service. And out of that service, I gave the service back out of gratitude. At the same time, I came into Science of Mind. And so tithing was out of gratitude. And through that process, we always, I met Deb too, all of this sort of at the same time, and we always tithed somewhere. At times though, that the idea of tithing where you're spiritually fed, I really like that, because there were times when we had to look, like where are we being, you know, it makes me think, where am I being spiritually fed? Really have to look at that, because there were times when we didn't have a center around that we were at, and so that wasn't a center where we were being spiritually fed. So was it a book study? You know, what was that was spiritually feeding us? And I still sometimes, you know, I'm still like there'll be individuals that definitely I'm spiritually fed, and I want to give them above the 10% that I give to my community. You know, I'm very grateful for this community, and I tithe regularly here. because I know I'm spiritually fed here. In 2008, I was thinking about something with that, though. Deb just looked back, she said, how did we even pay our bills in 2008? I'm a realtor. We tithe on the gross up front when the check comes in. It's tithed off the top. And one of the things that I knew in 2008 for here, there wasn't that much tithing going on as far as cash, because there wasn't that much cash coming in. But I spent all my time, extra time I had here, volunteering and doing of service around here. And that was out of gratitude again. And it was the comfort that I had of the community. You know, it's all tied together. You know, and tithing I loved when I heard Barbara say, you know, just write it on your check, God is the source of all supply. And no one had ever said that before, like stick it on your check, and I still do that on memos on my check. I just love that. I love that idea. Because I used to be a teacher, and my job, you know, came in, I knew what the check was all the time. And then when I moved here, you know, and I got into real estate, I never knew what it was going to be, and I really had to believe that God was the source of all supply. And that's such a great little tool. I still do that. I really enjoy that one. I do think, though, that there's been times in my life where we weren't tithing and we were sort of just in that limbo land. It was really interesting how the universe says, well, let's just take 10% anyway. So, you know, we don't have any of those issues anymore. But I'm very grateful for the center and for the teaching of Barbara and John and teaching of Science Mind. And I'm grateful for being able to be spiritually fed to tithe here.
Yes.
And Mary has been a good example to me because when we first got together, that was such an important thing to her, and we didn't have a place to tithe. And she said, I feel like I'm missing something. I grew up in the Baptist church, and we weren't taught by my parents to do 10%. We just had, as kids, we had money, and I would always put something in, and then when we got down the road to my brother, he would take it out. What I would whack him on the head, you know, and it was, you know, we were just kind of like derelicts. But I've always been a giver, a giving person of my time. And I've learned, though, that it's what you put out is what you get back. So if you want to volunteer your time, you're going to get more time back. You know, and you know, you can be of service all day, and that does help with the flow. But as far as getting money back, it's giving money out. And I really started getting into it with Edwin Gaines. And I quit my job that I was a psychiatric nurse, and I quit that job, and I finished up a program I was doing, and I got my doctorate, and I started my own private practice, and I was making, you know, doing pretty well. And I've had health issues and with my back, and I decided to have this real cutting edge surgery, and so we paid out of pocket, and that was a leap of faith. I just said, I'm having it done because I believe it's going to help, and it did. And I remember just getting on a plane and flying to Florida, and I called Barbara and said, oh, by the way, Barbara, I'm having surgery. Would you do a treatment? And I've done that lots of times with her, just off the, you know, fly of the moment. And that did help me. And then I still had to apply for disability, which is something that I've had a lot of shame around, you know, and Francis Leahy helped me work through that, you know, and because I just felt like, how would anybody want to go see a doctor who's sick and they can't help themselves? And I ended up going before a judge and to get my disability. I had a hearing for my Social Security. And Barbara did a treatment. We were doing the Wednesday night where you could ask for treatment, and it was kind of a private thing. Barbara knew what was happening. So she just said, I know that the judgment is in your favor. And people were like, what is going on with you? You're seeing it, you know, and I just didn't tell anybody, and I just between me and Barbara. Well, the next day, they lost the paperwork from the county doctor's opinion, and only my doctor's opinion counted. Because they put the wrong name. Like somebody else's paperwork that had a whole other diagnosis was in the file with my name on it. So they had to toss that out, and so only my doctor and everything that was in my favor counted, and I got it. And I was just like, wow, so relieved. But then I had this thing about, oh, it's such a small amount of money, you know, and I felt so afraid to tithe on that small amount, but I did. And one of the things that makes me want to tithe is, I think it was, I don't remember what year it was, but Mary, we went to the doctor and they gave her a really dark diagnosis. And she came home and told me she had this diagnosis and had 6 months or whatever. And I'm like, what? You know, and they tell you that while you're there by yourself, and it was really horrifying. So we went in the next day and I went with her to see the nurse practitioner, and the nurse practitioner said, well, he's a really smart doctor, and there was no biopsy, and I'm a nurse. And I'm like, come on, you can't tell somebody they have the diagnosis without a biopsy. And so she said, he's very smart, and he is always like 90%. We said, well, we believe in that 10%. We refuse to believe that. They thought we were crazy. And Mary just told her, I have done my work. I have no resentment. I'm not angry. Not angry. It was funny. It was like, and so she really thought we were wackadoo. And it was a long weekend. I'll never forget. It was a long weekend. We went in on like a Thursday, and it was like Labor Day. No, it was Labor Day. So we had a long weekend to wait for those biopsy results. And so we just treated, and we knew. And it was like, this is not what's going to happen. And Tuesday, we got the phone call, and it was a mastitis, you know, and it went from, you know, and he was saying it doesn't matter if it's a negative, you're going to still get a portocatheter, still going to do chemo, blah, 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 get a PET scan. Mary said, no, 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 I'm not.
Yeah.
And I was just so grateful. I was like, and if Mary hadn't had that belief, she may not be here. And so I know this center has given us what we have, you know, the belief that we have, and it's like, why would I not want to give to this community? You know, why would I not want to give back what feeds me? And you do feed me, all of you do. This is my family, and the reason why we love Asheville so much is not because of the drum circle or the hippie vibe here and all. That's okay, and that's nice, but we love coming here and these teachings with what's going on in the world right now. I would not be doing as well as I am if I didn't, because I know that we get to make up our own reality. And it's like I can read the paper and go, okay, Mary helps me with this. What's the higher thought? And so I'm just grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to call this place home, and I'm grateful to give. And then now that I am tithing on what I thought was such a small amount, I have all this other opportunity, and I have I'm not going to say what it is yet. I'm going to have a part-time job coming. And, you know, well, I wouldn't tell you. I love children. And I have these, you know, these amazing kids that are like our adopted grandchildren. And then I have a friend of mine who's had a baby. She's 11 months old, and she keeps putting it on Facebook. I need a nanny. I need a nanny. Does anybody know somebody? And I'm like, oh, my God, of course. I called her up and said, you know, it's only one day a week. I said, I can do this. I'm a pediatric nurse, you know. I've done... you know, I can do this. I've got skills, and I love her. So I'm probably going to be a nanny once a week.
So we have just a little bit of time. Is there someone who really feels called to share? And if so, be very concise and very clear. Selena and then Kristen.
Well, I was tithing for a long time, even before I came here. I started when I was going through a divorce, and all the money was tied up in legal stuff, and it took 3 years for it to get all completed. And during that time, I was tithing, and at times I didn't know how I was going to survive. But I couldn't stop tithing. I just knew in my heart that it was something that I needed to do, and I couldn't stop it. So somehow I always had everything I needed. I mean, it always happened. I don't know how it happened, but it did. And then when I moved to North Carolina, I had my retirement savings. I had some savings and in IRAs. So I went to this financial planner, and they told me some things that were not true, and I didn't know it at the time, but I put all my money in their company, gave all my money to their company. And I tried to get some money back. One time I wanted to go swim with the whales, and I tried to get the money for that. And when I drew money out, they said my bank account was short, and I was like, I don't understand this. How could this be? Well, they had put it into annuities, which without my knowing, and I couldn't draw it out until I was like 120. So I went to John and Barbara, and they treated for me, and I was able to, just by taking action that I knew I had to take, I was able to get that money back.
Yay!
So I'm so grateful for this center. I'm so grateful for John and Barbara, and for tithing. I'm a big believer in tithing.
I started tithing when I started going to Lynn Villa as a practitioner, and her thing is you can only see her as a practitioner if you tithe. And I had tried before, and I had a lot of fear, and it didn't work, and it was just too much. But when I went to Lynn, the fear of going to her and saying I could have tithed and I didn't was greater than the fear of just tithing. And that works. It works for me because that proved it. I went long enough that I proved that it worked. And now I would not. I went like a year or so ago. I was like, oh, I don't have enough, so I'll just stop. And it was like the worst 2 months of my life. Like it was really bad. And I was like, this isn't working. And I have a jar. Because I make cash, primarily cash, and I have a jar, and every single day when I get home, I count up how much I made, and I put 10% into the jar, and then that jar, all of it comes out, and I distribute accordingly, and I give here, of course, and I give to people, and I give to books, and I give to other workshops and places, and just everywhere, and it feels so good to be able to give and know that I have plenty to do that. It's such an amazing feeling, and I love like getting the bigger checks and then being able to like give more money. Like it's super exciting. And when that fear comes up, I just remember like those 2 months that were just absolute hell, and I'm like, no, that's not worth it. So to me, it really works, and I recommend if you have fear around it, find somebody scarier than
Anybody else called to come up?
I think I am.
Well, come on up, David.
Okay.
You've got a couple of minutes.
Okay, it won't take long. One of my biggest things that happened to me in the last 5 years, and it was a real,
Microphone.
it was really great for my faith and my belief in my higher power, was I went to the doctor. The doctor said I had lost all my cartilage in my right hip. I was a runner. I was 55 years old. I ran every day. I love to run. And I ended up, the doctor threw his hands up in the air and said, there's nothing I can do. And then he brought me in the office and showed me the x-ray, and I said, I don't see what you're talking about. I was being real cocky. But, you know, I talked to all my practitioners here. I would not tell anyone about this. I only told my practitioners, my wife, and I knew from the get-go I was in for a long healing. Amika brought it to my attention. She said, this is going to take a while. I can tell just by what's happening here. So I've had practitioners treating for me for the past 5 years. 4 of those years, I really didn't think it was going to get better. It just, I mean, it was getting better, but very slowly. This year, I had a breakthrough. My brother called me, said, we're going to Puerto Rico to surf this winter. You know, you've got to get better. And something snapped inside of me. I bought the ticket, went to Puerto Rico, and I was redeemed. he said it was some of the best surfing he'd ever seen me do. I'm 60 years old. You know, it was just like walking through the fire for me. It was monumental, and it was because of the treatments that people were doing, especially my wife, Shirley. She treated every day when I didn't believe. She kept saying, I'm healed, I'm healed, I'm healed. And then when Rob Morgan came here, and when we did all the other programs, I just kept saying, I'm healed, I'm healed, I'm healed. I just got it down to I'm healed.
Yeah.
Nothing else. And, you know, and I didn't give up before the miracle happened.
So I'll make this real quick because I've probably got like a 25-minute dissertation on tithing and the history of the bounty that has befallen us, mostly due to my sweet practitioner wife, Carrie Gass, and the many goats and chickens and dogs that she takes care of for us. But if I shorten it down into the one thing about tithing out of the entire story was after we've been coming here for a while, and you know, the first yearly commitment was, oh, this little tiny amount, and then we doubled it, and doubled that, and doubled that, and then came the day when it was commit to 10% before taxes, and that freaked me out. And I was so money scared, or whatever it was right then, and getting past that point, that's when the switch flipped, and our lives changed in a lot of ways, financially better, and of course, spiritually from being here. So thank you guys for helping us get to that point.
Perfect health, perfect wealth, perfect happiness. Yeah, you get to have it all. But you don't get to have it all and sit on the couch and hold on to your fear. You get to have it all when you stand up, face your fear, and bust through. So tithing 10% of your income is a given. Healing your hip, going surfing when you thought you'd never surf again, having the love of your life show up, being able to demonstrate the joy of community and spirituality, for me, is the best part. But we don't get the really great things until we handle our fear. So I encourage you, take the step if you haven't taken it. If you're playing games with yourself, stop it. It's really worth it. If you set spiritual law in motion, it will manifest in your life. I've staked my life on tithing. I absolutely stake my life on tithing. I stake this center on tithing. We are here because we decided to tithe. And we never gave up, and we never stopped. And so, as my students, I encourage you to take these teachings and to implement them in your life, to use them and to live them. And when you do that, not only will you have lots and lots of money, but your life will be amazing. That is the truth. It has worked for thousands and thousands of our students. Thousands of them. It works for anyone, no matter where in the world you are, no matter what country you are in, what your government is, what your socioeconomic status is. It works. When you give it out, it comes back. And it always comes back way more than anything you give out. When you live your life in gratitude for what you have and give out of that gratitude, you go to a whole other dimension of life, of prosperity, of love, of health, and of joy. That is our job. That is our job. So I commend you on your courage to live the life of your dreams. It's not always easy, but it is always worthwhile. And again, I've got to ask you, are you ready?
Yes!
Get up off your feet. We're going to do our treatment for prosperity together. Aloud. I, Barbara, know that God is the source of all supply, and that money is God in action. I know that my good is here now. I am so rich and so full that I have abundance of
perfect health.